Welcome to the Ambleside Online Scheduling video. In this video, we're going to walk through how to schedule the Ambleside Online curriculum, and we're also going to talk about how did Charlotte Mason schedule her curriculum, because Ambleside Online is based on Charlotte Mason's curriculum, and so that's really important to us. And so let's go ahead from the home page to Resources and scroll down to Scheduling. We'll click on this page where most of our information on scheduling can be found and accessed. So first and foremost, what's really important to know is that scheduling is a very important topic. We need to know, what are we going to do every day? So this is a very necessary topic. It's also important that we remember that no one schedule is going to fit everybody who uses the Ambleside Online curriculum. And the reason is because everybody's schedule is varied. Some people stay at home and they can do school for 5 or even 6 days a week. Others are part of a co-op and they may only do school 4 days a week to have that one co-op day open to do various things as a group. There are people who are single parents who are working and have to fit their work schedule. And so there's so many various situations. Grandparents sometimes get involved and we need lighter days to meet the needs of the grandparents and things like that. So we don't have one set schedule. The first thing we need to understand is the scheduling cannot be the same for every person. We don't have one set schedule that's going to fit every person's needs. So we leave flexibility with our scheduling. And should we use Charlotte Mason's original timetables? This is a question that's a reasonable question. If we're basing a curriculum on Charlotte Mason's methods and what she did, why shouldn't we use her timetables? Well, we can look at her timetables, and if you see there's a link here, we can click on that and look at her original schedules. And right away, as we look at these are the actual schedules. We can click on this download picture and look at a formatted, easier to see schedule here, and as you can see, this is listed out by form. The first thing we notice, I guess my circle is going to hang out here, but I hope you can see my cursor here. The first thing we notice is that there are 6 days in the schedule: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And so unless we're doing 6 days of school, we are not going to be doing Charlotte Mason's schedules. And in addition to this, they also had holidays work that they did over the holidays and various things. They also were suited to a school in which different teachers taught subjects. And so when we try to fit that to the modern mother's schedule, where maybe she has multiple children, we start to run into different difficulties. So the reasonable thing to do is then not to shove children into a schedule that doesn't fit. However, to look at the schedule, extract the important principles, look at the purposes behind why they did what they did, and then use those principles to formulate what is reasonable for our particular situation. And there is a great article here, a post called "The Spirit and the Letter of a Charlotte Mason Education" by Karen Glass, that we would just highly encourage you to read. She really talks about this point and in some depth, and gives us a lot of peace of mind as we go about scheduling and looking how we can adapt her methods, her principles, her curriculum to our family, our children, and their education. What we also find is that Charlotte Mason's timetables themselves were imperfect. In some of the old articles that we find that teachers saying that they're unable to fit everything into the schedules, and other issues and things that they had, and you can read more about that in that section. So they were imperfect even at her time. Does Ambleside Online look at page counts to determine term readings? Yes, we do. We looked at the original programs, and there is a link here that you can go through and look at what they did and how we arrived at the page counts that we have per term that we schedule out. So let's look at what principles that we can glean from Charlotte Mason's timetables. One of the first things is that she brings us right back to her first principle every time. Your child is a person. The child is a person. What we find in an old article that's linked here is that Miss Kitching wrote about what subjects to leave out of class to when time is limited. And this discussion happened in their time about scheduling, that possibly the issues that they were having. And she said that somebody very wisely remarked that Miss Mason intends the program to fit the child and not, as some wildly imagine, the child to fit the program. And so that just gives us permission, again, not to be lazy, not to throw everything out the door, and not to be remiss in our educational efforts, but not to let the schedule be a law or a ruler of us. It is there to serve us and not the other way around. So another thing we find is short lessons, and this is very helpful in the timetables. We can see by form, and we translate that out to grade here, how much time was spent on each lesson. So that gives us an idea, and as you can see, it grows as the children's grow in their grades. As they transition to upper grades, they allot more time per lesson. We also see that they had their days split up in morning and later in the day. The original documents that pointed these things out are linked here, as well as some posts that are helpful, that have been helpful to the community, that you can access here through the links. We also learned that they had variety in the schedule. She would switch between different types of mental work to aid the attention. So they might go from math to poetry to music to reading and so on and so forth, so that there wasn't hours and hours of focused similar mental work all back to back. They did everything they could to aid the attention through the variety in the schedule. They also read many books over a length of time. They didn't devour books that were scheduled all in 1 week or in a short period of time. They would read small parts or chapters from books and kind of live with those books over time. And they had scheduled multiple books at the same time. And sometimes people wonder how that's possible, that anybody could follow so many different books all at once, but we have no problem doing that with TV programs. And so it really isn't a problem for the children. And also it gives kids a season to live with a book and have it interact with life and thought and everything else that they're doing, nature study and all those things. So that's another principle. Arduous work is done when the children are fresh, and typically that's in the morning. Unstructured time. Children had a lot of unstructured time, meaning we don't have homework, we don't have, that schooling takes a portion of the day, and children are given that slow-growing, unstructured time in order for thoughts to mingle with ideas and everything else that they have interest in. Nature work, scouting, walks, activities, and games. And how much time should be allotted for each subject? This section shows us by subject, again, referring back to a historic document here on the practical working particulars of their school. Here we have English, and it shows how many hours and minutes, and science and mathematics and languages, etc., by form. So again, you'll see forms here, and those translate out to different grades. And there are some notes here that you can read, and here are some of the original schedules again. So how can we take all of that information and schedule Ambleside Online for our daily lives today? Well, here's how it works. This is one of the most confusing parts, I think, for new people. So let's go by year here. We're going to leave this page, and we're going to go to year 1. And when you go to year 1, you'll see over here some quick links. One is the book list and one is the schedule. Let's look at the schedule for year 1. As we scroll down here, we find daily work, weekly work, and additional books for free reading. We're going to pass that for now and scroll down, and what we find is the weekly readings, week 1, week 2, week 3. So let's just look at this first week. You can copy and paste this if you're at home doing your scheduling. You would copy that, and then you could go to your schedule that you have and paste it in. which is what we show here. Let's scroll back down to where we were. Here we are. So here we're showing, this is the week 1 that we just saw that I copied. And here we have just a general spreadsheet of the week, a table. You could do this by hand. You can do it on the computer. What you're going to do is you're going to have a Monday, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you're doing 4 days, you would only have those 4 days. So make it fit whatever your schedule is. And then we take those readings and we begin to populate it into this schedule. Now we have Island Story Chapter 1. If we look here, we had Island Story Chapter 1. We had the Bible. And you see the Bible is scheduled in here in the morning. 50 famous stories retold, that would come in here. You see that here. Parables from nature, we see that here. And look at this. Parables from nature, this chapter may be a little bit long. This is just an example, so it may not be, but for example, if one chapter is too long, notice how we did first half. And then we put it over here also for Friday, second half. So it's been split up and broken up this way. This is really important to know because if your child, you have to know your child, and if you see that you are overwhelming them with a reading that is just too long for them, this is not a stretching, but this is a genuine overwhelm, then what you want to do is you want to take that book and split it up into smaller readings. You can split it up into 2 days, you can split it up into 3 days, or 4 or 5 days, or even 1 in the morning and maybe 1 at bedtime. So there's multiple ways that you can approach a very long reading to help your child get through that reading in a way that fits their learning pace and reading pace. And sometimes you're reading it to them, sometimes perhaps they're reading it. So there's various differences, and every child is going to be different. Again, we're not here to fit the child to the schedule, we're fitting the schedule to the child. And that's really important to keep in mind. So as we go down here, we see that these are all scheduled in, and some days we have more than one reading. And some of these are just 1 page. Paddle to the Sea, Chapter 1, I believe that those are just 1 page. Aesop's Fables are very short, so those are good to pair up with a longer reading, perhaps, if you have to do 2 per day. So on that page that we were, let's go back to year 1. Schedule. In addition to our weekly readings here, we have this daily work and weekly work. So let's go back. We're going to take that and we're going to come back here to our schedule. So we've already done this. Now we've expanded this with more rows. This is the same thing we had here. We've just expanded it with more rows, and we've shifted things around because now what we're going to do is take the daily work. These are things that we're supposed to do every day. Copy work, 5 to 10 minutes a day. So what we need to do is to, in addition to the readings that we had, we need to incorporate copy work every day in our schedule. As well, phonics or reading practice, if you have a learning reader, that's something that you're going to do every day. And so we pop that in here. Now, as we're doing this, we're going to think back to the reminder that we're going to vary the types of work that they're doing. So it's not all one kind of work back to back. We want to vary that with different types of things. Recitation, mathematics, foreign language, we're going to put all of these things into our schedule. And there's a nice reminder that every scheduled reading is narrated orally. So when we have a reading, we want to have our children narrate those readings, and that is the work that is done in their mind. That is the beginning of the beginning stages of composition. And if you have not read Karen Glass's book, Know and Tell, that is a great resource to help you understand narration and why that's so important. Now here we have weekly work, and we have art, which is learning to draw or perhaps painting. That's going to be once a week. And we also have artist picture study. We have timeline and map, handicrafts. These are all things that are going to be your weekly work. So we're going to put those in not daily, but once a week. And nature study, that's typically done in the afternoon, or it could be done in that break time between the morning hours and the later hours. And so that's some of those things aren't going to be on the schedule, but you may want to add it for your afternoon time. So that's just a sample of how we schedule. Now, there are different ways to schedule. Here is another way that some mothers, actually this is based on Jeanette Toulis's schedule that she shared. She's one of the earliest adopters of Ambleside Online with her family. And what she did here is she took the daily work and she would put it here in a section called daily work. And there's 5 check mark spots for each of these because these are daily. So when you do it Monday, you're going to check as you do it, check it off. And here you have your weekly work. And this would be done once a week. And when it's done, you would check that off. And then below she had her readings. So here's Monday's readings, Tuesday's readings, Wednesday's readings, Thursday's, Fridays. And she was able to, she had a template of this and she would handwrite these readings in actually every week. But this stays the same. The only thing that would change here is the readings. So it's kind of a convenient schedule to be able to use that way. Again, there is no one perfect schedule, and it may be perfect for you and not for another, but it's a process to see what works for you and what is an aid and a help and a tool for your homeschooling needs. Another person that we spoke to, actually, I believe it's Wendy, she had talked about books in a basket, having a, keeping the terms books in a basket in the schooling area with bookmarks or tags indicating to the student what was to be read that week. And she would put little notes in there on different words to look up and things. And the child would look at the basket and decide what they wanted to do in that time slot and pick the book that they wanted to pick up, and it gave them the freedom and the flexibility to be able to do their schooling that way. So there are many different ways, and in fact, under more scheduling resources here, we have many more blog posts and samples and different people's ways of doing scheduling, and we place the ones here that we think are valuable and helpful. We also have users who frequently share their scheduling resources in the Ambleside Online forum and the Facebook group, because this is such a big topic and people are always regularly talking about it. So that's another resource for you. Now, when it comes to multiples in your family, scheduling can be different because you don't have one child, you have multiple children, and various people go about it in different ways. One way to do this, and here's a sample schedule, is to create a master schedule based on mom's time. Whoever is doing the schooling, mom is the hinge that everything turns on, and so it has to be based on mom's schedule. And so here we see that mom has time slots and what she's going to do at what time. And she may have morning together, everybody doing school together for about an hour and a half in the morning, while and then she'll get together and do math with the youngest. And in that time, the older 2 children are doing independent work. Now, after that child's done with math, they go off to playtime. And child 3 will come over and do math with mom. And then in that time, child 2 is doing independent work while child 1 is playing and having free time. Then after that, so child 3 is the oldest, I meant. Not child 2, sorry. And then now child 2 comes and does math while the oldest does independent work. So you get the idea. And then everybody has lunch. And then after lunch, she reads to the youngest, and then to the second, and then, this should be 3, reads to the third. So we'll fix that. That should say 3. And then they have free time. And so this is basically the gist of the idea, is that it's a master schedule based on the most important person's time who runs the whole thing. For this morning together schedule, Cindy Rollins has many wonderful posts and talks about morning time. She has a handbook for morning time, which is a great resource for people. And also auxiliary member Brandy Wenzel has a post on 6 steps to plan a circle time. She calls it circle time. These are all basically the similar concept of doing together time and working together on those things. And she also has a post here for making Ambleside work for very large families. So there are a lot of resources you can look into. Another option is Ambleside Online for Groups. This is intended for cottage schools, co-ops, and large families who just have too many kids that are too close together, particularly in the younger ages, who are not independent, who need to be grouped together. So you can look at that. There is a tutorial for that and how to do it, and other resources here. Now, how would you schedule Ambleside Online for a special needs student? Well, we have people who have done that and have offered their help. And so here are some links for that. And in fact, we even have a private area in the Ambleside forum specifically for learning disability special needs families to be able to have discussions about that. So how can you fit this all in? It can seem overwhelming. Gosh, there's so many things. I think typically in a school, you might have 4 or 5 subjects. Why are there so many different things on my schedule? It's overwhelming. Well, there's a wonderful post, again, by Karen Glass, called A Charlotte Mason Teacher. And this talks about how we perceive that, and how it may seem incredibly overwhelming, but truly some of those subjects are only taking 5 minutes of our time. And so I would really encourage you, if you feel that way, to read this post by Karen Glass. I think it will give you a lot of peace of mind. And again, scheduling is a process. Charlotte Mason warns us there's always the danger that a method, a bona fide method, should degenerate into a mere system. And we don't want to put too much onto that schedule and make it seem as if finding the right one is just going to solve all our problems and part the skies and make everything wonderful for us, because that's not always the case. It's something that happens over time, and it's a learning. We study, we learn, we apply, we go again, we study, we learn, apply, and it's through that process that we find what works for us. And so don't be discouraged if it doesn't fit you right away and solve all your problems the first time around. Where can you get more scheduling help? Well, you can go to the frequently asked questions. We recommend that you read through that. And also the Ambleside Online Community Forum is a great place to ask specific individualized questions and get personalized help there. So we hope you've enjoyed this video and that you have more help towards your scheduling needs for your family. And again, as always, if you have questions, you can find us in the forum.